It's all in our hands, this life of time that's given to us all. It gathers round each night, each morn. We watch it pass and grow. It is all in our hands, it is all in our hands. With every field and rising sea, can hear the sounds of all, and with every change we'll always be where hope's not lost but found. It is all in our hands, it is all in our hands.
This is the new Xiaomi 12 Pro, which is one of the first devices to come with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chip. There's been a lot of hype about this chip and even suggestions that it might rival Apple's dominance in this area. So I was really keen to try this out and see if this chip really does make a difference. And in this video, I'm going to give you my tips on how to use the Xiaomi 12 Pro to capture the most cinematic footage. And I'm going to talk about what I like about this device and what I don't like. It was just when I was looking at it, I was like, whoa, that is so cool. To shoot the best video with any smartphone, it's good to understand the strengths and the weaknesses of all the cameras. So let's start with that first. Firstly, the main camera uses Sony's new IMX707 ultra large sensor, and I'm told that this is just a little bit of an upgrade on the last version, which was the IMX700. So we have the full range of cameras that we would expect to get on a top range smartphone these days. There's the main wide camera, there's an ultra wide camera, there's a telephoto, and of course the front facing selfie camera. So each of the rear facing cameras has a 50 megapixel sensor, while the front facing selfie camera has a 32 megapixel sensor. The telephoto has a kind of modest 2x zoom, while the ultra wide has a 115 degree field of view. So while the optical zoom is a little bit underwhelming, you can certainly use it to add that telephoto character. And that means that you can add variety to your shots, which is always a good thing really. And of course you can zoom digitally as well. Overall, I did find that the main sensor, as you would expect, is the best quality camera, but the others are not bad either. So I was able to shoot footage with all four cameras and match it later without too much difficulty. So with all that said, it's the main sensor which comes with the most exciting features. And that Sony sensor is paired with a f1.9 aperture, which is big enough to allow you to get some nice shallow depth of field in your focus. And the sensor uses the 4-in-1 super pixel, which allows you to capture extra light in low light conditions. And Xiaomi say that by using the 4-in-1 pixel combining technology, the main sensor improves its light capturing capabilities by 120% compared to the previous Xiaomi 11 series of devices. So there's 8K recording and there's 4K HDR10 plus recording. So I'm just going to read this because I can't remember all these buzzwords, but the sensor offers Xiaomi Pro Focus, Ultra Night Photo, and Portrait Night mode. So there's plenty of features there to explore, as well of course as a lot of focus on night photography and night cinematography. So that's kind of reminiscent of the recent release of the Samsung devices with their, what was it called? Nightography, that was it. If you want to get the best looking video, I recommend using Pro mode. And actually all the shots that I used at the beginning were shot using Pro mode, except for the time lapse and the slow motion shots. I'm sure most of you know already, but Pro mode gives you the kind of controls that we're used to having on a regular camera. Things like shutter speed, ISO, white balance and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, unlike Samsung Pro mode, on the Xiaomi device you can actually use the telephoto lens in Pro mode. Now, if you want to shoot 24 frames per second, you can actually only do that in 8K resolution. But that Snapdragon 8 chip does seem to handle the 8K video really well. And if you do want 24 frames per second at a lower resolution, all you have to do is go into the gallery and use the compression feature, and you can reduce it down to 4K or 1080p, and it will be much more manageable. So another quirk of this Xiaomi device is that stabilization can only be switched off when you're in Pro mode. And the thing is that the Xiaomi 12 Pro uses digital stabilization, and that actually crops into the image. That said, the stabilization does seem to work pretty well, and it doesn't cause the kind of artifacts and issues that I had with the Xiaomi 11T. But in the end, I did actually switch it off for that sequence at the beginning, and I just used my Zhiyun Smooth 5 gimbal to get stable shots. So if you look in the More section, you're going to find a bunch of features, including slow motion. With slow motion, you can record video up to 1920 frames per second at a maximum of 720p, or you can go up to 960 frames per second at a maximum of 1080p. I mean, for comparison, a phone like the OnePlus 10 Pro can shoot at 120 frames per second in 4K, and this phone can't. So I actually used this mode for the shot with my hands going into the water, but I actually just stuck to 120 frames per second because that was all I needed for the look that I was going for. Just wanted a shot that was going to match with the lyric in the song where she sings and it's all in your hands. I was just going to have the water splashing from my hands, but then when I looked back at the shot, this bird flies over and it's just perfectly timed. But isn't it such a nice feeling when a shot like that happens and it's kind of by accident? It was just when I was looking at it, I was like, whoa, that is so cool. Once more, onto the More section, and you will find the time-lapse mode. And as well, there's plenty of options here for you to customize and perfect your time-lapse and hyperlapse shots. So a settings button gives you access to manual control. And then at the bottom, there's another button which allows you to alter the speed of your time-lapse. And it gives you some helpful suggestions here, like streets, so if you wanted to film cars or clouds or sunsets and sunrises. It gives you little hints there. Now the Xiaomi 12 Pro actually allows you to shoot time lapses up to 4K. But I actually kind of messed up here, and for my one, I actually only shot it at 1080p. But I think it's come out pretty well anyway. So this is the selfie camera, and I think it's pretty good quality. The maximum resolution you've got with this camera is 1080p, but you can go up to 60 frames per second, so that's not too bad. So if you want to use the portrait mode and get a blurry background, you can just swipe along to portrait, and this allows you to take a photo, and I think it's pretty good. You can adjust the strength of the background blur just by swiping up and down. I think it comes out rather nice. But if you want to get the same effect with a video, you need to go to video, just the normal mode, and now select the little magic wand. So you've got beautify, you can swipe up and down to get different strengths of basically smoothing out my wrinkles there. Let's go about there. And then bokeh, and now you can move up and down to select the strength again. So I would recommend that you don't go too high. If you go about the middle, and let's take a little video, that's what you get, and that's with the selfie camera. So it's not the best quality camera. You can also do the same on the front-facing cameras. The Xiaomi 12 Pro has 3 different features which add extra dynamic range. So they can be a bit tricky to use, and it did take me a while to figure it all out. I'll just quickly go into it now, but if you do want to learn more about these HDR formats, I've created a post for members which goes deeper into how they work. And there will be a link in the description to that post. So the HDR which you can access in the regular video helps to even out the contrast in the image. For example, if you have bright areas and dark shadows, this is going to produce a regular 8-bit color video file using the normal Rec 709 color space. So on the other hand, the HLG and HDR10 Plus formats are kind of more like Dolby Vision. which you get in iPhones. And like with Dolby Vision, if you try to edit one of these clips in the Rec. 709 color space, they usually look overexposed and kind of blown out. And that's because with these formats, you need to edit them in a different color space to regular video. So you can tell if a video is HLG or HDR10+, because in the gallery they're marked HDR. And this might be confusing because if you shoot with the regular HDR switched on, these files are not marked HDR. And that's because they're actually regular video files. So another thing you need to consider is that these files, the HLG and HDR10+, are not actually compatible with each other. You can't put them on the same timeline when you're editing. So they carry this metadata which is used to add extra dynamic range. So like I say, I've gone into greater depth explaining all this on my Patreon page. Overall, I think it's pretty good cameras, and you can definitely shoot some nice cinematic video with it. A couple of things I didn't like, for example, when I shot 4K at 60 frames per second, I found that the frame rates weren't too reliable, and sometimes it was coming out at like 52 frames per second. So that can cause you problems with the smoothness of the video. I still think the colors produced by my Samsung Note 20 Ultra are better looking than the Xiaomi. So the frame rates on the Note 20 are also more reliable. You know, if I shoot 4K 60 frames per second, I will get roughly 60 frames per second. So I don't know if it's something that will be fixed later, maybe with some updates, but that's what I've found so far. Yeah, so that's it for this video. If you found it useful or enjoyed it, please let me know by giving it a thumbs up. And once more, big thanks to all the members on Patreon who are supporting this channel. And of course, if you want to join us there, that would be cool. It's not only the HDR stuff for Xiaomi that we have there. There's my 170-page book, Beginners to Advanced, for smartphone filmmaking. I've got books on the film look. I've got ebooks for color grading and for using gimbals and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, happy filming.